Well, welcome everybody to our webinar about direct to garment versus dye sublimation, which is it's a pretty interesting topic, something that we get a lot from our customers trying to distinguish between both segments there. So they tend to cross in between each other, but then they have their own separate things that make them unique. And my name is Matt McCormick. If no one knows, I'm the inkjet manager here at Imaging Spectrum. I've got Zach Jones here as well.
Hey guys.
He is my head tech guy, knows a lot about these printers and these topics. So like what Zach said, we're just going to try to educate, try to distinguish between direct to garment and dye sublimation. Some folks find that they might need both, to whatever they're trying to accomplish as far as their business goes. And then some, think one side can do something that it can't, while the other one, can. So we're just trying to get that, separated out and see if it kind of makes sense to everybody. So like what Zach said, we're an Epson dealer solution center. Epson, we got a solution center here in Plano, Texas. We're open for demos on all these products. So if you do want to come in and look at, get a customized demo, please call us. We're happy to show you. You can bring a file in and see if it's something that might fit for your business. The main products we're going to go through, Epson's got the F2100 DTG printer. And then on the F series, the sublimation side, there's a few different products. F570, the 24-inch dye sublimation, the 44-inch, the F6370, and then the bigger ones, the 64-inch being the 7200 and the F9470, which is a high production dual head printer for lots of fabric printing, yard fabric, and they've got a new one out that's been out for a month or two that can do fluorescent inks, which is very intriguing. And we're going to have a demo printer on that one for people getting into the sportswear and stuff like that. They require that ink. But anyways, Zach, if you want to get to the next slide there.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and jump through here.
Okay. And so pretty much, I'll go over this overview and then turn it over to Zach. And like you said, if you got questions, we just fire them away at the end. We can answer it at the end of this, and hopefully this go quick and get you a real good idea between the difference. So what we say, why direct to garment over sublimation? We're going to touch base on that. Why sublimation over direct to garment? On the other side of there. What you can expect with everything as far as material goes and everything that is required for either one of these printers to work, the basic requirements, to kind of give you a little science behind each of the DTG and sublimation, show you a demonstration, and like Zach said, we're gonna have a little customer interaction video to show you of someone who got them both of those printers and made it work for their business from like ground zero. And then kind of give you an idea on return of investment. A lot of people want to know, how, what's the cost and what kind of an investment we're looking at, and where your ROI as far as coming back to you as far as getting in the profit. And then we'll end it with some questions and answers. And so Zach, fire away.
Yeah. All right, guys. Heck yeah. Matt, kind of went through the whole thing there. So I really just want to jump in, and we're just kind of start with what I consider important is kind of the science of what we're dealing with here. First, I want to start kind of with the science of sublimation. Now, some of you might already know this out there, but really intriguing, very cool process here. So basically, we're printing onto a transfer sheet. And what this transfer sheet is a glorified ink holder. It allows the dye sublimation ink to adhere to that transfer. Then from there, we'll apply heat and pressure with one of our heat presses there. Now, we'll go into the heat presses later here. A lot of different options out there. Some of your standard 16 by 20s, all the way up to calendar presses where you can jump into 120 plus inches if you're doing kind of roll-to-roll production there. And then lastly, the cool thing about sublimation that I really love is that once you actually embed this ink into your material, it doesn't sit on top of it, kind of like some of the pigment or other inks out there might, where it's actually embedded into the material. So what you can do from there, throw it in the dishwasher, throw it in the microwave, you know, scratch resistant, don't worry about throwing disinfecting wipes on it, all that is completely fine. So really kind of an interesting thing that only the sublimation can take advantage of there. Now, what I want to show you guys here is kind of the idea of pigment ink, where we might kind of be used to that from some of our desktop printers and things. So where it actually sits on top again, rather than being embedded in the material. So the reason I bring this up is because while there's a vast amount of items that you can sublimate onto, they do require a coating of sorts. Now, most companies out there do have a coating of their own. So basically what they'll do is they'll have these pre-coated items. So that way, all you really have to do is transfer that sheet to it, add pressure and heat, and you're kind of good to go there. Now, there's also a few options out there for folks who want to maybe sublimate on something that doesn't already have a polyester coating. There's a few products where you can kind of bake that poly coating into there, and then you can actually transfer into that. Acrylic's a prime example for something like that as well. So I don't want to get too sciencey here, but I think you guys hopefully understand the idea of sublimation is actually embedded and dyeing those fibers, whether it be a metal panel or an apparel, some t-shirts there. Now, on the science of direct-to-garment printing, what's required, and especially is because we're laying down this white base of ink, is a pre-treatment process. Now, the pre-treatment is it's a brief extra step in the printing process when you're dealing with the cotton and the white underbase especially. So what this does is basically it's a water-based glue that allows the white ink to sit properly onto the fibers of the t-shirt. So that way, when you actually have a final print of the color on top of it, you're getting that really vibrant, print that we're used to, the retail grade that we're used to, on a cotton garment like that. Now, one of the kind of catches here, now there's a polyester pretreatment for this as well. So if you're doing, 100% poly and it's something, maybe a black poly, and you need some text or something on there, it's doable. Now what I'll tell you is, since this is a water-based ink as well, what can happen is if you have too much moisture wicking, or if they have some of that extra technology in there, sublimation kind of becomes key at that point, because again, with the water-based ink, they can potentially be repelled in the direct-to-garment process. So I'm not saying poly can't be done, but it does require a little bit of extra trial and error there. So kind of jump from there. Now we're going to jump back into sublimation here. Kind of like I said, the process, and I'm just going to talk about it briefly here because we're actually going to show a video from start to finish, how the whole thing is done there, including the software side of things as well. So like I said, essentially you're dyeing these fibers. So they're going to last a long time in the wash. They'll be dishwasher safe. A lot of retail grade goods that you can make with this unit. Just a few applications, and we'll touch on some more of these at the end, though, that we see popular. Rigid applications, such as the Chromolux panels, mugs, things of that nature. Textile especially, if you kind of see this graphic over here, the all-over shirts are really popular. And that kind of jumps us into what they call cut and sew. Now, we're jumping up to a little bit more of a higher end application, if you will, because what they'll do is they'll actually print to the fabric directly. Then they'll have a seamstress come, cut everything out, and sew it all together. So you get one kind of beautiful unified garment at the end there that can sell for a pretty significant profit there. And of course, Matt was talking about the new 9470 that's coming out. So people who are dealing with sports especially, I know we're going to take huge advantage of it. We're seeing it in the signage market as well. So just a little bit of extra kind of flair to stand out from the crowd there. Just so you can guys see some of these Chromolux panels. They're one of my particular favorites. And of course, we have all that stuff in stock if that's anything you guys need, but super simple process. You have your heat press, you have your pressure set properly. And honestly, it's just an unbelievable print. It's CMYK, but I can tell you, you wouldn't guess that from the final output there. So I know we've been kind of talking about the heat here. So I do want to mention a few things on the heat press. The most essential tool, definitely, in the sublimation process, especially for consistency. And now I'll tell you, we do recommend a good company. Geonite, Hottronics are two that we deal with. And I'll tell you the main thing here with the cheap heat presses versus the more expensive ones is the consistency across the board in heat, across the heat platen there. So what can happen is some of these cheaper presses, you might have 350 degrees in one corner, 330 degrees in another, and I can tell you it is definitely going to cause an effect on your final print there. So again, I strongly encourage you not to cheapen out on a good heat press if you're really jumping into sublimation, because that's going to be a really very important step, as you can imagine here. So the reason I'm showing this one, it's a swing away. Now, I particularly like the swing aways for sublimation for one reason entirely, is because you don't have that clamshell, you don't have that hinge on the back. So if I'm putting any kind of thicker material in there, maybe like a 1-inch wood or something like that, I'm going to have that consistent, even heat across the board, where a clamshell is great for like direct-to-garment process, something like this. Now, this is the G unit. This is the one I particularly like for the DTG.
Well, Zach, if you go back to that other slide, I want to kind of say something about heat presses for sublimation. And it's all dependent on your area size that you're working with, determines what heat press you need. And so a lot of questions we get, especially on people looking at that F570 24-inch, Epson dye sublimation printer, if they want to get into apparel and get into jerseys and things of that nature, you got to pick the right heat press to accommodate those sizes. And so you can get up to, usually 16 by 20 heat presses can go up to 2XL. But if you're getting something bigger, 3XL, 4XL, I mean, there's some sizes you got to accommodate out there. You start looking at presses that are going to be, bigger in size. There's a 20 by 25, a 26 by 32 swing away. And if you're even getting into bigger sizes, or maybe doing larger Chromolux pieces or anything, it's all about what you're working with as the area goes. Then you're looking at maxi press presses that from Geonite, they're going to be 32 by 44, I think, in size, or 44 by 64 inch. So really big. So if you're trying to do all over garments, is a real popular item to do. You got to think of what size or width you're dealing with, because you need overlap in your heat press. I've got an example of someone who was doing puzzles, and the puzzles are I think a little over 20 inches in width or something, around there, and then you need a 16 by 20 won't do it, because if you're doing 21 inches, you're going to lose out on that edge to edge. So you need a couple more inches there to make sure all that product is covered. And so that's something we can help you, guide you if you got a question, trying to find out what the right heat press is. So just kind of, think, that when you're looking at these sublimation printers. But anyways, go ahead, Zach.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm really glad you brought that up, Matt. There are a lot of options for heat presses out there, sizes, type, and one thing I've noticed too. I'm just going to piggyback right off that, where if you have a 16 by 20 heat press, and let's say I try to press a 16 by 20 panel, it's a potential that it could work fine, but what can happen is right where those edges where the heat starts to dissipate, it just might not transfer as well as we'd like it to. So definitely just something to be kind of cautious of there. And again, like Matt said, if you have any questions on that, you can talk to us and we'll guide you into the right unit there. So just real quick, I'm going to talk about, it's a very similar process. Direct to garment, I do want to talk about this clamshell with auto pop-up and the hover feature. The hover feature to me is probably one of the greatest features on this here. And what we found with direct to garment printing in particular is, since when we actually finally finish that final print there, when we cure it, I like to hover mine for about 20, 30 seconds and just essentially bake it into the shirt before I give it that final press. We notice it keeps the saturation alive, and it just gives us that final, more vibrant print. Another cool thing about this one, especially if you're a one-man band, as I put it, it's got an auto pop-up. So if I'm in the middle of a project, or maybe I'm prepping my next shirt, I don't have to worry about my shirt scorching. I don't have to worry about my print, kind of fading or anything like that. It'll pop up for me, and I can just kind of keep production rolling there. And then last, for both of these, I always recommend having parchment paper. Sublimation, I kind of put it on the bottom and the top just to kind of keep everything clean there. And then same with the DTG, I'll put some parchment paper on top there. I'll just throw this out there too. I've tried, and I know some people like it anyway, the Teflon sheets. Now with direct to garment printing, I've noticed it gives it more of like a sheen, like a shine, almost kind of like a vinyl feel. So I particularly like the parchment paper, because to me it gives it a more matte kind of, again, retail finish is how I would put that there. So
yeah, anything with silicone, I think, is a good substance to use as far as parchment paper goes, and we do sell parchment paper for anybody who might need that for their DTG or sublimation applications.
And the nice thing about those too is that they come pre-cut, so you don't have to worry about them rolling up on you or any of that stuff. So I just take it right out of the box, put it on top, and I usually give mine about once, maybe twice at the most of a use. Again, they're cheap, and I'd rather keep my print looking clear without any kind of faults there. So let's jump over to some of the limitations now. So I know we kind of talked a little bit about how the process works, but I really want to explain why some people need both, why some people go with one over the other here. So direct to garment, with all its amazing qualities, it does have a few limitations here. Size being one of the top here. So like Matt said, for people who are doing all overs, a 16 by 20 is our max platen size on the direct to garment printer. So again, for most like boutique shirts and things like that, absolutely, probably more than you'll ever need. But if you're trying to get into something a little more, I guess, custom, like again, the all over, the cut and sew style, sublimation becomes pretty much the route to take there. Now, again, we're going to talk about polyester versus cotton here. Now, I know a lot of people, and this is probably one of the #1 things we have to kind of debunk, I'll say, for sublimation, is that a lot of people think, oh, I can print onto dark or I can print onto cotton. Now, those are two things that, with the standard machine, I should say, you cannot achieve, unfortunately. So since there's no white ink in this particular unit, really whatever our base that we're working with is going to be our white point, if you will. So if I'm working with, my best example here is I'm working with a blue shirt and maybe I print a red ink, I'll probably, when I transfer it, it'll probably have kind of a purple hue to it. Again, you'll notice with a lot of the sublimation substrates that they have like a white coating on them. So that way, if you do need that white point, or if there's white in the image, that becomes the particular white. Now, on the flip side, with direct to garment, technically, we can print on polyester, but it does require a different pretreat. And we also have to make sure that our pretreat machine that we have can accept that thicker pretreat as well. Now, one thing I'll say is if you print onto 100% polyester with the polyester pretreat and print onto 100% cotton with the direct-to-garment printer, you'll probably notice that the cotton's more vibrant. And again, that is just the nature of it. 100% cotton, especially if it's, we recommend ring-spun combed cotton. It's a little bit softer, so it feels better, but it also prints significantly higher quality too. So again, sublimation, we cannot print onto cotton, and especially so in maybe, a light polyester, like a light, maybe gray polyester, we can probably get away with. Your colors will shift a bit. And then lastly, there is a little bit more maintenance, I'd say, required in the direct-to-garment process because, again, it's a 3-step. So we have a pre-treat, we have the actual printing process, and the heat itself. So I'm not saying there's much at all. There's just maybe an additional 5 or 10 minutes a week that we might need to spend on that there too. So let's kind of jump into kind of the fun stuff now. I think you probably heard enough me talking here. So I've got a video I want to show you guys. I figure what we'll do, let's start with direct-to-garment printing. I'm actually going to show you one printing in real time so you can kind of get an idea of the whole process, and then let me know if you have any questions. Here we
go. For those of you who are new to the direct-to-garment printing process, the reason we are able to get such an unbelievably vivid graphic, especially on dark cotton t-shirts, is because of the white ink base this machine can lay down. This will give us an optimal white point to work from as we utilize a solid foundation for an incredibly vibrant print. We will talk about the pre-treatment process later, as this is the glue that allows our white ink to adhere properly to our garment. If you notice, the white ink will actually change density depending on the colors we will lay down over top of it, which will save us both in ink and give us a better hand so the product feels great during wear. We can choose to increase or decrease our density depending on our desired result. Now, for those of you coming from a screen printing background, it doesn't matter if your client needs 2 colors or 50, as the process will remain the same. We are letting Epson's advanced printhead and software take care of the heavy lifting as it converts our graphic into a usable CMYK print. If you have a client who is in need of 1 to 10 extremely high quality shirts, you will no longer have to turn them down. Once the printing process is over, we will cure our inks with a heat press. This allows our ink to fully cure into the shirt and will be ready for wash and wear as soon as it comes off the press.
right, guys, I just want to show you that real quick. So that way you can actually kind of see the full printing process. That was all real time. So literally just drag and drop that graphic in, hit print, and that's our output there. So that was just a real quick one. I do want to actually show you literally the entire process now, kind of from start to finish. So we're going to start with the pre-treating a shirt. We're going to cure that pre-treat. We're going to actually print it, and then we'll kind of see the finished product there. So let's just jump into that real quick.
All right, guys, now what I really want to show you is how easy it is to start with a non-pre-treated shirt and finish with a fully cured print ready for wash and wear. So here we go. I'm going to start with my non-treated shirt. I'm going to put it into our silver jet here today. All I want to do is make sure any major wrinkles are out of it. And then we'll go ahead and close it here. And you can see why we like the pre-treat machine so much. Really, one click, I already have my settings dialed in. You can hear it laying down the pre-treat right now. So simple as that, we're done there. Now what we're going to do is take our pre-treated shirt over to the heat press here. We're actually going to cure it. So what we're doing is we're removing any moisture that might remain in the t-shirt. Now what this is going to do is give us a nice dry area to work off of. So when we finally lay that print down, we're going to get an unbelievably crisp, high quality image here. So what I personally like to do is I'll kind of increase my pressure to about medium here, just so I can kind of push all of that moisture out of the t-shirt. Now again, this is the Geonite DK20A. A signifies the auto pop-up, so I do strongly recommend having a hover and auto pop-up system, especially if you're a one-man band operating this unit here. So I usually cure for about 335 degrees for about 60 seconds there. You might notice that some of the steam is kind of coming off it. When we kind of see that dissipate, that's usually a good sign for us to go ahead and lay it on the printer there. So. Now, one thing I will say, as your production kind of increases, one thing that we've seen folks do is they can increase the amount of machines they're using, and then they might go from something like a heat press into something more industrial like a tunnel dryer. This way what I can do is as soon as I finish a shirt, I'm putting it on that conveyor and I'm jumping into my next one. So always a scalable option for anyone out there who kind of wants to jump up into that next tier. So you can hear our shirt's finished there. So all I'm going to double check so that paper comes off super even. Just going to feel it, make sure there's no moisture. I'm happy with that. So let's go ahead. We'll remove this and we'll get it prepped on to our platen here. Now, we're using the 14x16 like Matt mentioned earlier. Definitely a great platen for any of the average shirts that you'll deal with, the adult, small, medium, large, extra large, and those things. The second most popular platen that we sell is the 10x12 for some of the youth shirts. So if you are doing any youth, sports, things like that, it's always good to have that as well. So all I'm doing, checking to make sure there's no major wrinkles here. I'm going to put our hoop on here, so that way everything is going to stay aligned. Our registration stays exactly where we need it. And I'm going to hop on over to the computer, prep our graphic for print, and let's have some fun. So over here on the computer, I want to show you we're working with Garment Creator here today. Standalone software that works with both Mac and PC. Now, if you have used any kind of editing program before, this is going to be a cakewalk for you. Really, I'm just going to do the file open. We're going to do our gesture hat here today, just to kind of show you the vibrancy of the print quality here. So we can set here, if we want to make some tweaks, we can. Honestly, I think with the way this graphic is prepared, I think we're going to be in a good spot. So let's go ahead and hit the print, and we'll hop back over to the printer here. So now we have ours networked, so with the rest of the Epson solutions we have here. So ours can sometimes take a little bit extra time to get to the printer. USB is generally a nice fast route, and what you're going to see is when the actual image is prepped, it will send that information to the printer, and our big blue button will light up, and that basically tells us, hey, it's go time, and here we are. So a few things I kind of want to mention while this is in its printing process. There are basically quality adjustment settings we can make. Now I have mine set on about a level 5 here today. Level 6 is the utmost max. So with the level 6, it'll actually lay down 2 passes of white before it lays down that color. Now the only thing to know on something like that is you have to cure it just for an extra about 45 seconds, just because we are laying down an additional layer of ink there. Now in this print, we're going to lay down a layer of white, and then we're going to lay down the color layer over top of it. So your average print time, I'd say probably around 2 to 4 minutes, depending on the size and the quality of the print that you're going for here. Generally something like if I'm doing just some basic text, maybe a black text, I can get away with a level 2 or level 3. It's going to reduce my cost, it's going to increase my speed, so kind of 2 great factors there as well. One thing I'll mention as this is kind of going through its process too, so today what we're using is the print onto a dark t-shirt. So basically anything that you see on the actual image itself, whether it be black, white, it's all going to be laid down for you. Now there is another example called Use Garment Black, which can help some folks. So anything that's black in the image, it will actually drop that out, and we'll use the t-shirt to become that background color for you, which can be an especially useful tool if you're going for some custom designs, and also it has a better hand to it. It doesn't have that big swatch of ink that you might get out of some prints there. So now we're doing its final pass here. So the white base is laid down, and one thing I like to mention on the white base, if you're coming from a screen printing background, is that rather than just laying that thick swatch down, since this knows what colors are going to be laid over top of it, it will actually adjust that gradient for you. So you're going to use less ink, and it's going to give you a better result, better hand in the final print there. So as you can see, this is actually, it's an incredibly fast print. I can't argue with that. I think we're probably around the 2-minute mark here. And what I'll do after this is I'll jump into our cost estimation tool, and we'll see exactly how much this cost. And speaking of that, I do want to say one of my favorite features of Garment Creator is the fact that before I even hit that print button, I'll know exactly what the cost is going to be out of my pocket. So if I'm doing a onesie, twosie run, I can kind of have that set up and let the customer know beforehand before I even start that first print. So definitely a useful tool there. So we're about halfway done with the print. Now I will say when the print comes off of the machine, it will still be wet. So what we're going to have to do is actually do that final curing process, which is really simple. Basically the same step that we did to cure the pre-treat solution, we're going to do that to the final print. And I'll show you some of the hovering that we do as well, just to kind of keep that utmost quality alive. There we go. So really simple as that. From here, what I'm going to do is carefully walk it over to my heat press. Now again, like I mentioned before, we really like this heat press because it has the hover functionality. Now we do have Hottronics as well, and they have plenty of great DTG options, so really whatever kind of fits your needs the best. Some folks like the digital, some folks like the more pretty, so whatever you really need to fit your needs is what we can get for you. So what I like to do here is I'm going to cure this for about maybe 20 seconds with a hover. And then I'm going to do that final curing press. Now, the thought process is about 45 seconds per pass. Now, a pass would be a white pass and a color pass. So in this case, we have 2 passes here. So we're going to do about for 1 minute and 30 seconds there. Now, one thing I'm going to say too is if your operation is, you might start here, but we always want to be up here. So for some folks, what they'll do is they'll actually daisy chain these printers together, go with a tunnel dryer at that point. That way, since I'm working on this shirt, I can already be prepped for my next shirt to be printed and cured. So now last but not least, after the hover process, I will take one thing of parchment paper here, and with a light pressure, just enough to really kind of push that in, I'm going to give it one final press. And again, this is going to be for about the minute 30-second area. Now, as soon as this is done with its heat process, this is ready to wash, wear, sell, and everything. One thing that I know a lot of folks get discouraged about is they might see that bounding box from the pre-treat in some brands of shirts. Now, don't be alarmed. The nice thing about that, anywhere that the ink has not set, after you do that first wash, any pre-treat that's left over will be completely removed. So I like to tell people it actually gets better after your first wash. So something to kind of note there as well. And again, this has auto pop-up, so technically what I could be doing is I could be pre-treating my next shirt. I could have one that I already had pre-treated that I'm ready to start printing here. And since we're talking about that, one really nice thing to do too is if you have a down day, go ahead and pre-treat 30 shirts. Have those prepped on hand. The only thing you need to do is remove the moisture before you finally get it to the printer there, and then really that's your main focus. So you can hear our beeps going there. Now mine was for a minute, so I'm going to let it sit in there for another additional about 10-15 seconds. One thing that we've noticed too is when you lit this up, a good rule of thumb is if you can check that, so I've got a little bit left on that shirt. And there you go. Parchment paper comes right off. We are ready for wash wear. Awesome, guys. So if you have any more questions on that, we will have a Q&A after this, so feel free to save those questions for later and we'll talk to you then.
right, guys. Well, hopefully you kind of saw how easy it was there. I know I was doing a lot of talking, but I'd say generally when everything's kind of going through the motions, we're looking probably about 5 to 6 minutes, maybe 7 on some of the more detailed shirts there. But that's why I did want to mention that sometimes it's kind of best to go ahead and pre-treat, a handful of shirts beforehand. That way, if you have a client that walks in, you're kind of ready on a moment's notice there. Of course, the pre-treat process is super simple. Hopefully you guys saw there we were using the silver jet. So again, it's really just for consistency's sake is what we're doing here. So every time we're going to get that same even spray. We're not going to have any kind of lines or anything that'll be missed, because what'll happen, anywhere that pre-treat doesn't sit properly, that white ink will flake off. And obviously we don't want that. So I think that was a good little crash course on the direct-to-garment printing. I think, from now I want to go and jump into the sublimation side of things as well. A fairly similar process, I suppose, but, now we're dealing with the transfer rather than printing directly onto that material. So I'm going to go ahead and play that video right now, and then we can get an idea of kind of the process for sublimation as well.
All right, guys, I'm going to piggyback off what Matt was talking about here, and we're going to jump into the Epson Edge program, a really strong, powerful program that's going to come with these production units. I want to show you guys a few of the really cool features that come standard with it.
Now, I do want to pause real quick here just to kind of give you a little bit of information about what we got. So this is the F6370. So this is their 44-inch production model. You're about to see here, we're going to talk about the software that it comes with. Now, the 570, which I know is kind of the popular printer out there right now, it will not come with its own software. So I just want to preface that there. I do most of my printing out of Photoshop for that particular unit. Now, it's driver-based. So again, you can essentially print out of any of your favorite programs that are out there. But for today's, I do want to kind of show you a little bit more of the production side of the sublimation here. So, all right.
Yeah, and one thing to add, Zach, some people get kind of confused. Even though the 6370 is a 44-inch printer, you don't have to do 44-inch rolls of paper all the time. You can do 17-inch, 24-inch. The idea behind this printer is more of a heavier production or mid-production, heavy production kind of outfit there, where you can, if you're doing like, I don't know, 100 to 500 koozies or something like that, and you want to just put those images all across the width of the paper and print out a bunch of them, so you can use that transfer for a lot of different items, which I think you're going to see in the video anyways. If it's like you want to put it to a koozie and then maybe use that transfer and put it on a coaster or something else, or even use it on a face mask. So I think we'll see that on the video here.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for saying that, Matt. And two, that's got me thinking as well. With this, and since we're on a larger bulk unit, these are going to come in 1,100 milliliter inks. So you do have a little bit of a cost savings on this as well, just by the nature of the inks there. So let's jump into it. We can talk more about that later here.
So let's go ahead and jump in here. Under the Epson Edge print tool, what I'm going to do is actually add my image here. So we've got this really cool dragon, kind of like a high school mascot kind of vibe going on. So we're going to take that. I'm actually going to do a few things here. I'm going to size it here, and I'm actually going to add a few copies. That way we're taking up the full width of our material here. From there, I want to show you a few of the basic settings that come within Epson Edge Print. Things such as color settings if you want to switch your profiles over. If you're working with spot colors or Pantone colors, it's really great to be able to have a color replacement option. Some of my favorite options too is the tiling and the step and repeat option. So if I want to tile my image, or if I want to do a step and repeat and I just do a large pattern, it's very simple, literally 2 clicks and I'm ready to go there. So today we're going to keep it simple. I'm going to go right back to the basic settings, make sure I'm happy. We have our media selected. We're going to do a 4-pass print here, and I think you're going to be pretty impressed at the quality. So let's go ahead and hit the print button, and we'll jump to it. So while this is printing, what this program is really going to be doing is essentially processing your image, so that way when we actually send it to a CMYK printer such as this one, everything's going to be profiled properly from the images that you were originally working with. So on that note, I want to strongly encourage you to find the best files you can. Obviously, garbage in is garbage out, so the better file, the stronger, higher resolution file you can start with, guarantee you're going to be happy with the results every time. So what we're going to do is let this finish, and you can see on a 4-pass, it's actually a very fast print here. And like Matt said earlier, we'll go through some of the accounting, but pennies on this kind of thing, guys. So once this finishes, what we're going to do is we're actually going to take it over to our heat press here. We're going to use our same geonite as well, since it's so universal. This one we actually have to about 400 degrees, so we're going to actually press with medium to medium heavy pressure onto one of our towels here. So really popular right now if you guys are seeing the cars, the birthday parties, the drive-bys and things of that nature. It could be really cool. You want a flag, you want something to show your team spirit. This is always a great option and very cost effective as well. So we're almost there. Now this printer does have a built-in cutter. So right now I have it set where it won't automatically cut. That way if I'm in the middle of another job, it'll hang off of there without falling onto the floor. And then when I'm ready to actually do my final print here, I'll go ahead and cut it, send it over to my heat press, and we'll be done. Simple as that. One thing that I really like about sublimation that I think Matt mentioned earlier as well is that you're not putting this on top of the material as if you were printing onto a substrate like that. Really, it's embedded inside of the material, so that does two things. We call it retail grade, so I don't care washes, you know, dishwasher safe, microwave safe, whatever it might be, this thing is going to stand the test of time. So we're done here. I'm going to go ahead and hit the cut button. So you can see here's our print here. I'm actually going to cut this out to size here so we don't have to work with this big 44-inch. And so now we just have our material a little bit easier to work with here. And the really cool thing about this is now that it's on the transfer sheet, we're ready to transfer it to any material that has that poly coating that we need to work with. So I can put this on a rigid material like a Chromalex panel. I could size it down, put it on a mug, or I can do what we're about to do here, throw it on some apparel and put it on a sports towel here today. So let's check it out. All right, guys, we're over here at the heat press now. So really, this is probably the most essential step when it comes to sublimation is having proper heat and proper even heat, which is, first off, why we recommend a decent heat press like a Geonite or a Hotronix, because their quality control standards are higher. You're going to get a much more even heat from corner to corner as well. So now what I'm going to do here today, I'm going to take a piece of parchment sheet to protect my bottom platen here, just in case any ink transfers over that. We want to keep that clean. Now I've got my material here today, so this is 100% polyester solid white, which is going to give you the best results. I do want to mention that if you're focusing on cotton or dark materials, sublimation may not be the route for you. That might be when we start looking into DTG as well. So what I'm going to do here, take my substrate. I'm actually going to make sure that all my fibers are going in the same direction in this case. Now we'll take our transfer sheet here, and what I'll do is I'll put another piece of parchment paper on top. So the nice thing is you can kind of see through this paper here. So you can see not very vivid right now. We're just going to kind of place it properly, kind of align it here. Now this is a production paper, so that has a little bit of tackiness to it, which is great for fabrics because it'll actually adhere to that material a little bit easier. Last but not least, to protect our top platen here, I'm going to throw one more piece of parchment paper. Now I'm going to do this on about a pressure setting medium to medium heavy, and that's just going to give us enough to really push that ink out of the transfer sheet and onto our substrate. So here we go. So with sublimation, a lot of goods are around the 400-degree range for about 60 seconds. The nice thing out there is a lot of the vendors and manufacturers, they actually have proper settings and pressure settings already ready for you to go. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact us as well. And don't forget, we also have a Q&A at the end here. So if there's any questions that are popping up right now, save those for later and we'll definitely answer them for you. So we got about 30 more seconds on here, and one thing I want to mention why I like sublimation so much, your ink cost, your paper cost is so significantly low. We're talking about a 15-cent range on a print like this. Your real big cost is going to be on your materials, your substrate. So whether you're dealing with Chromalex panels, whether it be polyester t-shirts, that's your biggest factor in there. So we've got about 15 more seconds in here. As soon as this pops up, the cool thing about it is it's going to be embedded into the material, so it's going to be completely ready to throw on the shelf or sell in a moment's notice. So here we go, about 3 more seconds. Now I'm going to carefully remove this sheet. We don't want any of the ink transferring over, so we'll remove the parchment paper first. We'll remove our transfer sheet second. And then hopefully you guys can see here how that quality, it really is, it just pops right off the transfer sheet. So just to kind of give you a note here, here's what we started out with, flimsy, cheap. Now we've actually got that embedded into our material here. So whether it be 15 cents is going to be your lowest ink cost, you know, again, you're focusing straight up onto the material here. So if you have any questions about certain materials you want to print onto, or maybe there's something out there that you're not sure if it can work or not, give us a shout and we can definitely explore that for you further. All right, guys, so again, 15 cents, and I can tell you I'm going to make a pretty good profit off this here. So whether it be a drive-by birthday lately or whatever it might be, we got something for you.
All right, guys.
And
Well,
hey, Zach, let me jump in real quick. A little correction on the end of that video. The ink cost is not 15 cents. It was that's actually the total cost of doing just that towel, and that's what the I think the cost of the towel and the inks that were laid down on there. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah, so the 15 cents was both ink and paper. It did not include the substrate, which was the towel, and it was around about maybe like the dollar for the towel.
That's right. That's right. So basically, the whole idea on there is your cost on ink and paper is very, very low when doing sublimation and talking about cents with a lot of products. The main cost is the I guess the product itself that you're sublimating to, whether it's the metal panels like Chromolux, or maybe the towel, or the blanket, or whatever it might be. That's kind of your main cost there. And so like on the 570 printer, I mean, when you're comparing on those bottle inks, it's $18 for 140 milliliters of ink, and that's about 12 cents a milliliter. On the F6370, I think it's around under 11 cents a milliliter. So it's really inexpensive, really cost efficient. The paper is probably I think it was about 15 cents a square foot or something around there, on the transfer paper. So that your materials, paper and ink, are really cost efficient. It's just more, like I said again, the product that you're sublimating to. That's probably your main cost.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better, and the 570 has an accounting tool, and we can run the accounting numbers on the 6370 too. So if you have any questions on that, we can definitely test that for you as well. But Matt's right.
And if y'all we're going to show you some cost breakdowns on various materials and sublimation, and we're also going to do something on the DTG side. So stick around. We'll have that coming up.
Absolutely. So I figured what we might do here is I'm going to show just one final video, and this is really just kind of the full package, if you will. So this is a customer that started with DTG, found that she needed to also incorporate sublimation into her operations as well. So now she's kind of running these machines in tandem. So I just want to give you guys a representation on that. And then, like Matt said, we'll go over some of the return on investment. Then we'll open it up for questions, and I think we'll be good there. So stick around.
Hello, we are here with one of our very good customers to kind of tell you about her success story with the Epson printers that we sell. She started off with the Epson DTG F2100 printer and has since then moved on to sublimation with the F570 printer. So this is Karina Gill from Crafty Bee by CV. Welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We're going to ask her some questions. She's going to tell how her story and how she got started in the business. So first, Karina, if you can tell us about your business and where you're located, and go from there.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm located in Farmers Branch. As Matt said, Karina Gill. I actually started about a year ago, and my cousins and I started with the Cricut. Soon after, a couple of jobs, we decided weeding was not the way for us. That was just too time consuming, and we didn't want to. I came across Imaging Spectrum, had the pleasure of speaking with Steve, one of the sales guys, who was amazing. Immediately invited us to come in, demo. They had lunch for us. They had our logo put up on the desk. I mean, it was a really cool experience. We immediately demoed the DTG, the F2100, and we fell in love. So we purchased it. I think that same day, purchased that, had it set up. One of the techs, Zach, was amazing. He came in, helped set it up, helped train us on it, gave us a full day of training. And has kind of just walked us through the process the entire time, right? If we had questions, things like that.
So what is your experience from going from a Cricut machine to a DTG machine? Has it really transformed your business, and maybe you've seen some good growth?
Oh my gosh, it has totally. I know a lot of people can do a lot of amazing things with the Cricut. Don't get me wrong. I am not that person. I do not love to layer 15,000 colors. I want it simple, right? I want to be able to push a button, and really that is what we do here. You start with great artwork. That's key. You have to have great artwork. If you don't have great artwork, you're not going to have great results. I would email Zach or call Zach, why is my image not printing great? Well, I mean, again, it has to go back to you have to start with great artwork. So you find those websites that provide that, or just someone's logo that is crisp, and then it does it. You know, it does everything for you.
And did you have a market before, or before owning the DTG, or did it grow after having that printer?
We did not have a market, and so since then I've kind of split off on my own because I wanted to offer a couple of other products. So as you mentioned, sublimation is another thing that I've moved into. I did not have a market. I wanted to test. I wanted to know the machines, and it has been a year, and now I can say I'm comfortable with what the DTG machine can do. Yeah. You know, the first year it was a lot of maybe charging less or doing test shirts for people, giving things away so that we could figure out you know, how it worked. So now, yes, just launched a website that now I can bring in the volume.
And you can plug your website right now.
Yeah, it's www.craftybeebycv.com.
And what made you get into sublimation? Were you seeing there's another growth area there for you that you can do? What kind of things are you sublimating?
Absolutely. Well, it was another open house here at Imaging Spectrum. I come here as often as I can, spend a lot of time with with Zach and the team, just looking at all the different products, the mouse pads, right? My full-time job is auto industry, and so just the need and what I see that companies charge, either small businesses or even big businesses, right? For some of the jobs, you have to order in huge bulks. So I saw that as an area and opportunity. Mouse pads, the Chromolux panels. I just did some beautiful panels for one of the ladies that we work with on a project, and she absolutely loved them. The jerseys, we've done a couple of the jerseys. I had to move up to the 25 by 20 heat press that I just got from you guys last week, so that has been a game changer as well.
That's very important because, as you move along and you get into larger substances or larger products to do, you have to have the heat press to accommodate it. As Karina, was testing here, start off with a smaller heat press, you get into larger pieces, you have to have a heat press that fits that area so you can, press everything at one time. Yeah, that's awesome. So with the, how's your experience with us? I know you already touched base on with Imaging Spectrum, but how's it so far? Is it over the time of owning these printers, has it become easier, or have you found out how to press certain things in a timely manner and find it kind of easier as it goes along?
Oh, absolutely. There are definitely a lot of tools out there, but some of the tools or the tables, right, people may be using different heat presses, people may be using different printers. The pre-treat machine is really important, right? So we got one of the Lawson pre-treat printers, pre-treat machines, because that was key. Like Zach explained to us how key that was. Unless we were going to buy shirts that were already pre-treated, you needed to have a good pre-treat machine. So the experience has been amazing, right? I've had jobs that I'm doing for a boot camp company, and Zach, I can't get the image to be clear. I can't, I'm doing a level 6, but what am I doing wrong? And so he's guided me through, have you tried this? Or come on in and let's, do a few prints here. So that has also really helped me get to know the machine, and side by side with, who I call one of the experts, right, of how to properly print.
And you make a good point. I mean, you came from a background that didn't have this, and you've been learning as you go on. It's been a year from now, and it is kind of a trial here and there, and that's what we're here for. We're here for to provide you support and help to get you there, and you are a great example of a success story, in my opinion, in our opinion. So what's the future plans for you? What are you looking to do more with these printers?
What the future holds, I can't tell you, right? I eventually know that I want to move away from corporate America, which is what I do full time, right, and do this full time. I fell in love with this. I knew when we picked up the Cricut that it was something that I was going to like, but working with machines like this, you absolutely love, right? You go to some of the trade shows and things like that, and you get to see that I'm working with, Epson's top machines, right? I mean, I know they have a more advanced one, that I'm kind of working my husband for right now, but that's later, that's later down. Right now, it's just keeping customers happy, making sure that I can provide good quality, right? I love, I'm doing right now for Mother's Day, right? Just a couple of shirts for first-time mothers and, their baby's name and their date of birth and stuff. So being able to easily customize that, the smile that it brings to someone, the excitement that, oh my gosh, I love that shirt. I want more of that.
Yeah. And you just launched your website today,
yes.
I think. So good luck to that. I know you're going to be successful with that and create more business coming your way for sure. Let them know the website one more time.
It is www.craftybeebycv.com.
Okay, and thank you, Karina, for coming. And this is a testimony that, if you have a Cricut or one of the smaller machines, you can get into one of the machines if you really want to. And it is an easy transaction, and it's not as hard as you think. But we are here, Imaging Spectrum. Go visit us at imagingspectrum.com. Call us at 1-800-342-9290. But we're here for your support as well. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you for having me.
All right.
All right, guys. Well, hopefully that gave you a little bit of an insight into kind of, a trajectory or a path. You can see you can kind of start with something kind of smaller and basic and kind of eventually move your way up into that production environment as well. So, I think that's going to be it for our demonstrations here. I am going to go to our next slides. Give me 1 second. So I do want to kind of mention a few things. I'm going to let Matt kind of take over at the end here, and he's going to go over some of the return on investments as well. But I really want to kind of explain kind of what the Epson difference is, I suppose, is a full turnkey solution. So what Epson kind of prides themselves on, ink chemistry, they're making their own media types, they have their own drivers, their own software, their own printers. So the nice thing about that, especially if we're dealing with color profiling or customers where we're trying to hit a certain Pantone, we have a lot easier time with a fully functional unit that kind of comes full circle there. So, and of course, Epson doesn't do that with just their die subs. It's the same way with the direct-to-garment, their own inks, print heads, software, the works there. So I think from there, we kind of talked about the process, how everything, works there. So I think what we're going to jump into is just a little bit of return on investment. Just a few kind of things you can expect here. Now, this is just a good general overview, but I'm going to let Matt kind of take over and talk a little bit about your return there. So,
yeah, I'm a numbers guy. I like spreadsheets, and some people don't, but I like putting a lot of things on numbers and stats and whatnot. But basically, this is a spreadsheet that I have created and I have submitted to some of our potential customers that are looking at DTG or sublimation. This is primarily for the DTG printer because it is an investment. I mean, it is something to look at. If you have the market, you have the customers out there. You have you think you have a streamline of products to get out to a customer base that makes it work. This will make sense for you, and it will return back to you on an investment in a profit zone at one point. Basically, this is kind of trying to figure out as much as cost as possible. Owning a DTG printer with a pre-treat machine and a heat press. Now, some of y'all might already have a heat press already. You can take that out of this equation. The cool thing about this little spreadsheet I have, and if you want me to send it to you, that's fine. You can plug in numbers. It will adjust everything to maybe to your what your situation is. But ideally, it is a little bit under of a $20,000 investment with a printer, pre-treat, and heat press. It depends on the pricing of the printer each month. Sometimes there's some different rebates. Sometimes the prices are a little bit lower. Sometimes we have some demo deals we can do. But ideally, it's around that much. But this particular model here factors in doing 500 shirts per month, which is 100 light shirts and 400 dark shirts. And you kind of see the breakdown there. And I won't get into all the real details, but that's factoring in a shirt costs about $3, and then ink usage on a full color print on a dark shirt, and then doing some light shirts. But basically, looking at this scenario under a 500 shirt per month scenario, you expect to get a return on investment in about 4 to 5 months, and that's typically what we see with our customers. Now, if you're doing a little less shirts, and you could put in that equation, maybe it'll take a little longer, but generally within a year, you can get your money back on your whole investment, and even in a short time, depending on what you're doing on the shirt side. So really, if you've got, I know schools are about to be opening up, and there are more opportunities going to be coming. I mean, I know it's kind of been down the past 2 months, but I think people are starting to slowly open up, especially schools. Some more, maybe some sports and things of that nature that require some customized shirts and different groups. And so it kind of depends on your market there and what it will take. But that's something to really consider, that there's a lot of trial up front, and we're here to help you out. We're here to support you and try to guide you the right direction. But yeah, it can start making money pretty quickly, back to you within a year. And then from then on, it's just really you're making profit after that.
And so from here, let's go over to some of the costs on sublimation as well.
Yes. So, I mean, not too much detail. I mean, fashion right now with sublimation is really popular, doing patterns and applying it to different garments. Customers doing yards of fabric and selling the fabric to other people to use, whatever they need to do. Sportwear, cycling, gymnastics, a lot of different polyester brand materials. But you see here, signage right here is some people didn't know you can do signage with sublimation. But those teardrop flags that you see popping up everywhere, especially with businesses, trying to get some signage out, information out if they're open, or COVID operations or some of their guidelines. Really, when you look at the ink costs and paper costs, like on that 8-foot teardrop flag, you're talking really cents, like in a really low cost there, and your profit margin is really good with the sublimation. It's like I said before, it's mostly about the materials. Hard goods, especially if you're coming from already maybe doing something with the lower level sublimation printers like Sawgrass or Ricoh, and you're doing some plaques or Chromelex pieces right now, mugs, water bottles. Yeah, that's stuff that you can do with sublimation, and that requires different presses, like a mug press that can get that cylinder setting there that you can put the mug or maybe the water bottle. Promotional products for sure. We've got a customer doing that picture right there with the teddy bear, the little shirts. They're doing that with with the customized teddy bear, mouse pads, koozies. Again, looking at the ink cost, paper costs, you're talking about cents. And then one thing I want to also, the hottest item, no doubt, right now with sublimation is, and with DTG, but more on sublimation side, is doing face masks. Absolutely. And face masks are, there can be cotton based, which is used on the DTG, and you can definitely do that with that DTG printer. The sublimation, you're printing on polyester, on a white polyester substance to print all sorts of different designs on face masks. So we've got customers, even though they might be down in some area, they're finding other areas to use their sublimation printer to produce and stay in business with face masks, and even those gaiters, like the gaiters that are kind of like the bandanas. So I think those are going to just be something that's going to be around now and maybe even become a fashion statement for who knows how long. So that's something also, you know, that adds to the whole mixture of everything you could do on sublimation.
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, hopefully that was I know it was a crash course for sure, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up for questions here. You know, as you can see, there's a lot of opportunity out there, a lot of versatility with both of these units. So it's really finding out which one kind of fits your needs the best, or maybe or maybe both, you know, to kind of come up with that final solution there. So I've got my Q&A open here. So I'm going to go through a few questions that I saw pop up. Bob asked if there was a way of printing an ink transfer with white ink without having to get a DTG printer. There are a few options out there. Now, again, there's a toner-based option as well. I'll tell you with those from my experience, they have much more of a heat transfer vinyl feel to them versus like a DTG machine like this. It's going to have a much softer hand, just overall feels just a little bit better, in my opinion there. Vincent asks, if you direct a garment and dye sub the same design on a shirt, what's the difference in durability? Great question. So I'll tell you this, you know, these DTG machines are really made, and the ink is constructed to hold up to the same standards as a screen printed shirt will. Now, with dye sublimation, since we're essentially dyeing these fibers, they will hold up for quite a while. You know, garment depending, again, since it is embedded into it and actually dyed it, you know, you'll have just retail grades, the best way I can put that, you know, anything that you would grab off the shelf from, you know, a sporting goods store or anything like that, it'll hold just the same there. Oh, Sean, great question there too. I think Matt just briefly touched on it too. Sean asks, how do you heat press mugs and larger items like banners for sublimation? So there's a couple different options out there. Two cool things I've seen for sublimation. There's dedicated heat mug presses. There's also ovens where you can apply your own pressure and just kind of heat it up to the proper temperature. When you start jumping into larger items, it kind of becomes, there's one of two things there. Either a calendar press for certain items. There's also some people, I've seen Hicks has conveyors where you can actually do the larger panels and just push them through there now. There's a little bit of a catch there because pressure is very integral in the in the dye sublimation process. So there's definitely tons of options out there. Is there any other questions there, guys? And if you need to, you can go to that Q&A up at the top there, hopefully, and type your questions in there, and we'll just answer them live here today. Looks like I'm not seeing much, so you know, I don't know if you guys have, of course, if there's any questions that pop up in the meantime, you can always contact us. We've got our number down at the screen here, and then we've also got our website if you want to check out a few things there. And like I said, of course, if there's, you know, there's plenty of stuff out there, and there's plenty we didn't touch on. So if there's something that you would rather have a one-on-one conversation with, we can absolutely make that happen as well. Oh, Sean, great question. You know, actually, I do get this question quite a bit. So Sean's asking if there's a downside with a smaller press and doing half of the shirt. So I'm not saying it's impossible. What I'll tell you is with those graphics, sometimes you'll see the seam where the press is made. So, you know, it's just something just to be cautious of. Now, people I've seen utilize that, they actually will create it in the artwork where there might be a fade, or there might be something where the graphic is designed to be pressed in two spots without having that actual seam down the middle where you're changing them. Bob says, if we're just starting out doing shirts, who will we start selling to? You know, great question, Bob. And you know, that is a very good one. So I'll tell you, you know, there's no, I don't want to say there's a specific right answer. You know, the folks that I see do well, boutique designs, you know, sell the shirt for a little bit higher there. Etsy is really popular. You know, Instagram with the Shopify integration has been a huge thing for people as well. So what they can do is they can kind of check their feed and say, hey, I really like that design. Let me get one printed up. Now, one of the really cool factors with DTG is if you do your own branding or have your own design, you know, you don't have to have 2,000 shirts in stock that you say you kind of hope might sell. But the way you can do it is kind of a fulfillment where, hey, I just got a ding on my Instagram, and so let me go ahead and knock out a quick shirt. You know, I have one shirt, I'm not wasting any material, and I'm not wasting any time really, essentially. So that's kind of a huge advantage on that regard. But Bob, I'll tell you too, you know, since we're just talking about it here, a lot of people have a lot of success with the local market. You know, if you get with some of the clubs, maybe some of the schools, some of the sports teams, things like of that nature, you know, and a lot of these clients, you know, you make them happy, and I can guarantee you can get a great print for them. You know, that first time, they're just repeat customers. So there's a lot of opportunity. You know, I don't want to limit it to anything in particular there. So hopefully that helped a little bit. Bob, yes. So great question here. I'm going to reiterate on this one too, because this is, again, we spend a lot of time kind of educating customers with the colors of shirts. So really, white is going to be your absolute highest quality shirt. Because it's going to give you the most vibrant color at the end, the most color accurate to what you see on screen. Now, I'm not saying I've definitely done some light shirts, maybe some light grays, maybe like a light blue. The only thing to be cautious of, if I'm doing something with white ink, that's perfect. Excuse me, black ink, I'm sorry. You know, again, I'm not worried about the color shift. When I start introducing colors into my image and colors into my you know, design there, that's when it can have a little bit of a shift during that final press. So we recommend 100% polyester. White would be the absolute be-all end-all. You know, if it's an 80-20, it's still acceptable. You just got to start at that point. The more cotton, or the less poly, I should say, introduced is going to give it more of a vintage look. So you can, if I pressed a 60-40, a 60 poly, 40 cotton, it's going to have kind of a faded, almost kind of washed a couple times, or, you know, washed 10+ times look to it as well.
And just to kind of add on to that, there's so many different types of fabrics out there, like Lycra and what's that, Minky. Minky is a kind of a, you know, product that we've seen in blankets, and there's all sorts of different names to it. I think another one I think
stretch,
is
jersey. Yeah, there's so many.
And it's really just checking out what the material is made of. I mean, if it's, you know, 80 to 100% polyester and it's white, then I think you're good. You know, but the higher the polyester content is really the best way to go.
Very much.
Yeah, and you're going to see those vibrant colors coming off these sublimation printers.
You know, and one thing just to kind of nerd out is what you can do, and it's fun sometimes, especially with both these machines. You know, go into a Hobby Lobby or a Michael's, and you know, most of the stuff that they sell has the consistency of it. So you can say, hey, well, that's poly, or you know, I've seen people sublimate. I've seen actually people both sublimate and direct-to-garment, use the direct-to-garment printer for like canvas and things of that nature as well. So, you know, and I should just reiterate too with direct-to-garment. I know we were showing you all the different things you can do with sublimation. There is a lot more to direct-to-garment printing than just T-shirts. You know.
Shoes,
hats, shoes. Yeah, I mean, we could, you know, go on
socks,
denim jackets. I mean, you know, bandanas. We're seeing again, of course, the face masks with their popularity lately too. So absolutely, as long as just check the material, check what the consistency is. Is it mostly cotton? Is it a poly blend? You know, and there's a few factors. And
one thing maybe we didn't, you know, I think we kind of talked about it, but the DTG, I mean, if you're doing hats or socks or shoes or whatever it might be, there's just different platens out there that you can put on there to accommodate those products. There's even a face mask platen now that has been quickly designed to the growing popularity of making face masks with DTG. So yeah, it depends on the product you're doing. There's going to be a platen out there for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, for the DIY minded, it's, you know, I've seen people kind of craft their own as well. So your limitation is that 16 by 20 and then the height. So I think you got about a ½ inch or more clearance there. But yeah. And of course, you know, if any ideas pop up, you're like, can we do it? Give us a shout. And if we don't know off the bat, I guarantee we're going to find out for you. So, yeah.
Then Sean had a question about the cleaning maintenance.
Thank you. Let me see. Perfect, Sean. Excellent question. Thanks for bringing that up. You know, and I'll be honest with you, the maintenance on both his machines is fairly minimal. I would say there's just a little bit of extra maintenance on the direct-to-garment. So about, you know, every couple days I'll run a nozzle check if I'm not printing on it. Now, if about every 2 weeks I do what they call a cap head cleaning, it takes me about 3 to 5 minutes. And what it is, this is for the direct-to-garment printer, the 2100, is where the print head sits. It's got a suction, so it's like a cap that actually caps it, so it keeps it from getting any air, keeps it from drying out. So occasionally, like I said, about 2 weeks, week to two, I'll just kind of clean off a little of the excess ink around there, so it has a good spot for it to sit on. So, and then last thing on DTG is anytime before I print, honestly, I do this daily. When I come in the morning, I just give the 2 white inks about 10 or 15 shakes. Nothing too rigorous, just kind of back and forth. Whereas on the sublimation, we're not really worrying about the cabinet station and all that. Really with sublimation, what I do is at least every couple days at minimum, I'm just running one nozzle check. Again, it's mostly if I'm not printing. I just don't want any of that ink to sit on the print head and then just sit there for like a week or two where it can kind of harden, have a chance to harden there. So running a nozzle check, and that's for any inkjet printer, to be honest with you. So very minimal maintenance. Anything else, guys? Hopefully that answered most of that for the most part.
Yeah, well, yeah, if there's not any more questions, we do really appreciate your time. Like I said, if you are in the area and want to come see any of these printers we have them on display. We can do a customized demo for you, and you can actually see, the products or the printers in action and the results of the products. Just call us. Or email us. I mean, you can email me at matt@imagingspectrum.com. We can set that up for you and spend the time, just kind of see if it makes sense for your business.
Absolutely. And on that note too, just want to kind of say one last thing here. Again, thank you guys for joining us. But and this is not just a one transaction thing. Once you have the printer, once you're with us, you've got us every step of the way. So if there ever is a problem file or something like that, we're definitely here for that support as well. So thank you guys so much for joining us again today.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, guys. Take care.
Okay.